The demi-humans scattered throughout this world have kept the village of Lag in a state of constant warfare. Kai, a soldier from the village, joins forces with his friend Manso to confront one of the gorilla monsters. However, not even the strength of their friendship can save him, because when it comes to fighting, Kai's skills are utterly worthless. Now, Kai finds himself cornered. Without a doubt, he would have met his end right then, but at the last possible moment, Alha strikes down the gorilla. As the village's appointed guardian, blessed by the land god, he stands as the strongest warrior among them. With terrifying ease, he slices through the gorilla one after another, until finally, he stands before the gorilla guardian. You'd expect this, the mightiest of gorillas, to pose some real difficulty for Alha, yet in mere seconds, he cleaves it clean in half. Now that all the gorillas are taken care of, the soldiers begin slicing into their bodies, and one of them passes Alha, a container filled with a strange liquid. Without hesitation, Alha takes it and drinks the liquid, and right after, his body starts glowing with a red aura. These are known as godstones. Consuming the liquid within is said to boost a person's strength and spiritual energy. So it would seem logical for everyone in the army to drink at least one to grow stronger together. But that's not the case. The rules only permit them to consume tiny drops of it. Each of them gets their drop, and after taking his, Kai can already sense his spiritual power rising. He turns to Manso and asks if he can have a bit more, but sadly, he's just a regular foot soldier, so there's no chance he'll ever be allowed to drink an entire godstone. According to the rules, nearly all the godstones must go to a guardian bearer like Alha, so even though he's already incredibly powerful, he's forced to grow even stronger, while the other soldiers remain stuck at pitifully low power levels. And yet, nobody sees a problem with this system. Back in the village, a grand celebration erupts to commemorate their triumph over the gorillas. Yet even during the feast, portions are strictly divided by rank. The mighty warriors and the chief's children take all meat and wine for themselves, while lowly foot soldiers like Kai are left scraping by with nothing but a meager bowl of soup. The soup honestly isn't all that bad, but Kai can't help wishing he could have some of the good food as well. Unfortunately, that's never going to happen as long as he's stuck as a low-ranking soldier, so he makes a vow to train hard and grow stronger so he can climb up the ranks. Right after the banquet ends, Kai heads outside and begins training with everything he's got, but it's tough to give it his all when he's barely had anything to eat all day. He shouts out that he really wishes he had some rice balls right now, and just a few moments later, Manso appears and asks Kai what exactly rice balls are. Kai admits he isn't entirely certain where the idea came from. The word simply popped into his head one day out of nowhere. Still, he can't shake the feeling that rice balls would be incredibly delicious. There's something weighing on Kai's mind, and he points toward the hill where the village honors its deceased warriors. That particular slope is reserved for soldiers who left behind families, a place constantly visited by grieving loved ones. But in the other side, there's another hill in complete disarray, crowded with the neglected graves of those who died without anyone to mourn them. No one has ever bothered to care for this forgotten patch of land. Orphans like him are destined to end up buried in a place like that when they die, with no one to visit their graves and no trace that they ever existed in the village. That's exactly why Kai wants to become stronger, to survive long enough to live a life that actually means something. And for that, he has no other option but to eat his meager rations and push himself harder in training than anyone else. But even that wouldn't be enough to guarantee he makes it. He'd need some unique advantage, some hidden power to give him an advantage in battle, though he has no idea what that could be. At that very moment in the castle, Alha and his sister Jose are making their way to their father's room. Alha tells Jose there's no need for her to worry about war briefings since she isn't expected to take part in combat like he is. Still, she says she wants to help protect the village too. But Alha brushes her off, saying that a daughter from the chief's family doesn't need to learn how to fight, and no matter how much she pleads, he won't allow it. Jose fumes at the injustice, being barred from battle simply because she's a girl. The universe seems to mock her further when she glances out the window and spots Kai and Manso laughing and sparring together. Manso, older and far more skilled, effortlessly outmatches Kai in their training sessions, leaving Kai with no choice but to desperately focus on defense the entire time. Manso warns Kai that he'll never improve if he doesn't start taking the offensive. Kai finally attempts an attack, but in doing so, leaves himself completely exposed. Manso counters instantly, sending Kai crashing to the ground where his head hits the floor. The impact leaves him with a severe concussion, and suddenly, fragmented memories from his past life in Japan come rushing back. As his consciousness flickers through these memories, he remembers one specific word: magic. However, when he finally wakes up, he has no clue what magic even means, since that word doesn't exist in this world. This isn't the first time Kai has experienced strange memories either, and apparently, in this world, there are quite a few people who see visions like that, but Kai doesn't think it's worth mentioning to anyone. Sure, the memories gave him knowledge about things like rice balls and magic, but none of that really helps him here, especially since magic was just a fairy tale back in Japan anyway. Still, if there were somehow a way for him to actually use magic, he could make a big impression in their next battle, and that would definitely boost his status. Meanwhile, back at the castle, the chief has just gotten a letter from one of the neighboring villages, and it seems they're under attack by orcs. So, in line with the alliance agreement between the two villages, the people of Banya are obligated to head out and provide assistance right away. The chief isn't happy about having to send the soldiers back into battle so soon, especially since they've barely had any time to rest and recover from the fight against the gorillas. But Alha tells him that it's a soldier's duty to be moved around and to die for the village, so they have no right to complain. Even so, the chief reminds him that the soldiers are still part of the village too, too, and he shouldn't treat them like they're just disposable pawns. Back in the barracks, Kai is having trouble sleeping because he can't get the idea of magic out of his head. Manso can tell that something is bothering him, so he asks what's wrong. Kai tells him it's not a big deal, but he had a dream about being able to create fire out of nothing. As odd as it might seem, he thought Manso would think this sounds stupid, but to his surprise, Manso admits he's actually heard something like that before. He once heard a tale about a strange traveler who arrived in the village. The man wanted to start a fire, but didn't have any kindling with him, and under normal circumstances, it would have been impossible to do it without the proper tools. Yet, the man just lifted his finger and produced a flame out of thin air. Kai is surprised to hear that there's actually a record of someone using magic, but Manso reminds him that he only heard it from an old story, so there's no guarantee that it is true. Even so, hearing that story has motivated Kai to try learning to use magic. So the next day he heads out and finds a secluded spot so he can start training. He isn't entirely sure how magic functions, but from what he remembers, it seems to require some kind of enigmatic energy. The closest thing Kai can compare it to would be spiritual energy, so he decides to give that a try. Extending his finger, he orders his spiritual energy to manifest as fire, yet it's not quite so simple. It dawns on him that he likely needs to concentrate his spiritual energy first, so he starts attempting to channel it through his godstone. But no matter how hard he focuses, nothing changes. Meanwhile, orcs have been sighted just outside the neighboring village, and they've already killed a dozen soldiers, so the rest of the soldiers assemble to fight back. The soldiers wait outside the forest to see if the orcs are still there, and as soon as they spot the orcs, they charge in. The orcs start their attack too, but Manso quickly manages to stab one right through the heart. Wanting to get a kill of his own, Kai rushes forward, but one of the orcs hurls a corpse at him, slamming Kai against a tree and pinning him down. The orc then approaches, ready to strike Kai down, but before it can, a volley of arrows hits it, and Manso finishes it off. Manso shouts at Kai for charging ahead alone, and orders him to return to the formation. But it seems Kai injured his leg when he got hit, and now can't walk on his own. At the same time, Alha is tearing through the orcs, and once they realize he's far too powerful for them to handle, they all begin to retreat. But Olha has no intention of letting them escape, so he abandons the rest of the soldiers and takes off after the fleeing orcs. That pretty much leaves them to deal with the remaining orcs on their own, and considering how hard it is for them to fight the orcs on their own, the soldiers are cooked. The squad leader orders all the soldiers to run and scatter so most of them can survive. But with Kai's injured leg, he and Manso have no chance of escaping the orc. Kai refuses to hold his friends back because of him, so he stops Manso and urges him to keep going alone. Manso is unwilling to abandon Kai, but deep down, he understands there's no other option. With regret, he apologizes and swears he'll pay his respects at Kai's grave. Then, Manso run away in one direction while Kai crawls away in the opposite direction. He knows there's no way he can win, but he still refuses to give up on his life. So when he hears the orc getting closer, he tries to cast fire magic to protect himself, but it still doesn't work. Moments later, the orc hurls its blade at Kai, hitting him in the shoulder and leaving him badly wounded. On the upside, the brush with death causes sparks to shoot from Kai's fingertips, so maybe he actually can use magic. The problem is, he might not survive long enough to find out, because the orc bursts out of the bushes and starts choking him. Right then, Kai catches sight of the sparks from his fingertip, and he instantly understands what it means. He raises his hand toward the orc's face, and, using every ounce of strength and willpower he has left, he calls forth flames that burn the creature alive. The orc lets out a scream of agony, and Kai is able to free himself from its grasp. As a result, the orc eventually goes down from the damage it took, and Kai feels proud for finally managing to take down a monster by himself. But there's one small issue. His hand is still burning. He frantically tries to extinguish the flames, but after a few moments, he starts to lose consciousness because the fire is draining all of his spiritual energy. If he doesn't find a way to stop it soon, he's going to die from spiritual energy exhaustion, so he has to come up with something quickly. He just needs to picture his spiritual energy like a dam that he opened when he cast the fire magic. So to put out the flames, all he has to do is stay calm and shut the dam. Staying composed becomes nearly impossible as Kai sees the orc, badly wounded, but still alive. It starts approaching him. With great effort, he finally cuts off his spiritual energy's flow, but it's too late. The creature reaches him anyway. The orc takes him and starts walking away. Yet, the orc hasn't finished him off, and Kai realizes the flames must have blinded the creature and doesn't know he's still alive. Though Kai has no desire to die, he knows his body won't last much longer. At the very least, he's determined to drag the orc down with him. As the beast stumbles near the edge of a cliff, Kai slices deep into its chest, and both of them ended up falling into a river. Somehow, Kai survives the fall and uses his knife to pull himself out of the water, though his spiritual energy is still critically low. Realizing he has to move fast if he wants to stay alive, he notices the orc's corpse lying nearby, this time clearly lifeless. Without wasting a moment, he takes his knife, slices into the orc's body, and retrieves its godstone. Since drinking the godstone's liquid can help restore his spiritual energy, Kai wastes no time and ingests it completely. As the spiritual energy starts coursing through his body, Kai can already feel himself recovering, so he lies down beside a tree to get some rest. Now that he finally has a moment to reflect, it hits him. This is actually the first time he's ever consumed an entire godstone. From now on, spiritual energy won't be a problem. Still, the deep wound on his shoulder is bleeding heavily, and he's pretty sure he's going to die out here anyway. On a positive note, at least he can pass away watching such a beautiful beautiful sunset. Back in the village, all the soldiers have made it back from battle and are preparing to celebrate their triumph over the orcs. However, Manso isn't feeling the same joy. One of his fellow soldiers notices him looking down and approaches, telling him he should just cheer up. Then, it strikes him. Kai isn't there, which is strange since Manso and Kai are almost never apart. After a brief pause, it dawns on him Kai must have fallen in battle. But rather than offering sympathy, the soldier coldly tells Manso to move on, claiming Kai was nothing but dead weight anyway. Kai lies unconscious beneath the tree all night, and when morning comes, he wakes up shocked to find himself still alive. Not just alive, but feeling stronger than he ever has. His shattered leg has healed, and the wound on his shoulder has closed completely. While he's relieved at how things worked out, there's also a lingering confusion. After all, drinking a godstone shouldn't have been enough to fix such serious injuries in just one night. Kai figures it might have something to do with the wall behind him, so he turns to check and sees that it's actually a stone covered in strange inscriptions. He tries to read them, but there's too much vines blocking the view, so he decides to use his fire magic to burn it away. The problem is, his magic is way more powerful than it used to be, and the sudden burst sends Kai flying across the valley. As he gets back on his feet, he catches a glimpse of his reflection in the water and is stunned to see a divine crest now etched onto his face. He recognizes it instantly as the mark of a guardian bearer, but within moments, the markings vanish, leading him to believe he must have imagined it. He heads back over to the stone, hoping to finally get a clear look at the inscriptions, but the writing is in a language he can't decipher, so he decides to give up and start making his way back to the village. He spots a cliff face that seems scalable, so he begins grasping the rocks to make his escape, but suddenly, his divine crest reappears and he unintentionally shatters the rock he was clinging to. He tumbles back into the valley, initially assuming the rock was frail, yet when he seizes another rock, he finds he can effortlessly crush this one too. He figures the godstone must have given him a massive power boost, and Kai couldn't be happier about it. But just as he's celebrating, a voice calls out, telling him to leave, and he's not about to stick around to see who or what it was. He immediately starts climbing the cliff at full speed. When he reaches the top, he's stunned by how effortlessly he made it up, and now he's even more thrilled about his newfound strength than he was a moment ago. Still, he questions whether this is truly the power of divine protection. The divine crest, known as the mark of a guardian bearer, is said to be a gift from the land gods. Yet Kai has no memory of receiving any power from a god. Maybe it happened while he was unconscious, but until he learns the full story, it's probably best to keep this hidden from the other villagers for the time being. In the village, Manso has just completed preparing a grave for Kai, but at that moment, Kai shows up as if nothing happened. Manso is overjoyed to see Kai again, and life largely returns to normal afterward, with Kai resuming his regular tasks. This time, however, he excels remarkably at his work. He was only supposed to plow a small portion of the field, but in no time, he had plowed the whole area without even breaking a sweat. For a moment, Kai panics, fearing his divine crest might be visible, but after checking his reflection in the water, he confirms his secret remains secure. The crest likely only manifests when he exerts maximum effort, so as long as he avoids overworking, he should be fine. The others notice he seems much stronger than before and ask if something happened. Kai struggles to come up with an excuse, so he simply confesses that he consumed the godstone from the orc he defeated. Hearing this, the group is stunned. Ordinary soldiers like them rarely get the chance to drink an entire godstone. However, since Kai was badly wounded and near death, he really had no other option. Actually, during his journey back to the village, he ended up consuming the godstones of nearly 10 orcs he encountered on the battlefield. This explanation makes perfect sense, so the others finally grasp why Kai has become so powerful. Manso even praises him, congratulating him on managing to return alive. Meanwhile, one of the village women, Elsa, keeps watching Kai for an unusually long time, prompting her friends to start teasing her about it. Around the same time, back in the village, Princess Jose heads to the storage house to speak with the person in charge. He informs her that all the grave offerings have been fully prepared, so she's free to begin the grave cleaning whenever she's ready. Early the next morning, Kai is already out training with his fire magic, and there's no doubt it's become more powerful than before. But as he's in the middle of practicing, Jose approaches and demands an explanation, saying he looks awfully suspicious. Kai has no choice but to obey the princess's direct order, so he explains everything about his fire ability to her. Surprisingly, Jose doesn't appear too shocked, as she's already familiar with similar powers. Typically, those with abilities come from elite families or are trained monks, making Kai somewhat unusual, especially since he shows no signs of exhaustion, despite having likely expended a great deal of spiritual energy. Jose remembers a rumor that Kai gained immense strength after consuming several godstones, suggesting he possesses a greater reserve of spiritual energy than most. Jose requests that Kai train with her, and he has no grounds to decline. A short while later, the two are sparring with training spears, though Kai is far stronger than he used to be. Jose, as a guardian bearer, isn't someone he can easily overwhelm without exerting some effort. However, he doesn't want to unintentionally expose his divine crest if he pushes too hard, so he must be careful. After the duel ends, Kai makes his way to the well to fetch some water, genuinely surprised that he was able to complete the training so effortlessly, especially since he had been holding back to avoid exposing his divine crest. This implies that his true power is so overwhelming that even a guardian bearer like Jose wouldn't stand a chance if he were to unleash his full strength. Right at that moment, Jose asks him to bring her some water too, so Kai quickly hurries back to her. As she's washing her face, he takes the chance to ask whether all guardian bearers bearers possess the same level of strength. Jose explains that she's actually among the weaker ones, since both her father and brother are far stronger than she is. A guardian bearer's strength depends on the blessing they receive from their land god, but they also need to train independently if they want to grow stronger. When it comes to training, Jose falls far behind. Strictly speaking, she isn't obligated to train since women in this village aren't expected to fight, but as a guardian bearer, she has a responsibility to defend the village in battle, meaning she must grow stronger too. And the role of being a guardian bearer isn't just about victory in the battlefield, it goes beyond that. Kai is puzzled, but just as he's about to ask her to clarify, the morning bell rings for wake up. Since Jose isn't actually allowed to be out here, she needs to hurry back to the castle before anyone spots her. As she prepares to leave, Kai quickly stops her with one last question. What exactly did she mean when she said guardian bearers have a purpose beyond just winning battles? She has developed an affection for Kai and wishes to clarify things for him, but the rules forbid it. Instead, she invites him to join her on her monthly grave cleaning duty. Her land god is enshrined in Eda village, so she'll arrange for Kai to accompany her, and once they're there, she'll be able to reveal everything. Kai agrees to join, and a few days later, Jose sets out for the village along with Kai and a handful of soldiers. They've been tasked with protecting Jose in case anything goes wrong, since the area falls within ape territory. However, the soldiers find it a bit strange that they were suddenly picked to escort Jose, especially when it's usually another squad that handles this kind of mission. A soldier from Kai's squad mentions hearing a rumor that Jose specifically asked for Kai to join her, which is why their whole unit got pulled into this assignment. He turns to Kai and asks if it's true. Kai starts to answer, but before he can finish, Manso cuts him off, telling the others to back off because there's absolutely no way the princess would even recognize him. The others find it difficult to accept that Kai is friends with the princess, yet they remain envious of him nonetheless. Eventually, they reach the village, and to Kai's astonishment, it's nothing more than a heap of ruins. Years ago, monsters overran the village, forcing the villagers to abandon it. Yet the gravestone remains standing, and as followers of the land god, they're still bound by duty to tend to it, even though this village's land god has grown so weak that nothing grows in the soil anymore. At that moment, Jose walks over and says she wants to explore the village a bit, so she'll need someone to escort her. The man instantly volunteers to escort Jose, but she says she'd prefer for Kai to go with her instead. So Kai and Jose begin walking through the village, and when they arrive at a small flower garden, Jose drops to her knees and begins to pray. Kai is curious and wants to ask what she's doing, but she insists on complete silence and tells him not to speak. Red aura suddenly begins to pour out of Jose's body onto the flowers, and when she is done, she explains that she was simply praying for the land god's grace to gather here. This is a job that only guardian bearers bound to a land god can do, but since this village was abandoned, her land god's spirit has grown very weak, which is part of the reason why she isn't as strong as her brother or her father. While Lag village thrives in producing abundant crops due to her father's strength, Jose struggles to sustain even this small flower garden with her abilities. Because of this, Jose's father has never slackened in his training, knowing that if he allowed himself to weaken, it could spell the end for Lag village entirely. While land gods do grant power to the guardian bearers, that power is dependent on how strong the individual is, which is why all the guardian bearers have to train and drink a ton of godstones. Kai and Jose eventually rejoin the rest of the group, and it's time to clean the gravestone, so they all venture into the ruins while a few soldiers remain behind to keep watch. As Kai and Jose work on cleaning the gravestone, he examines it closely and recognizes it as identical to the stone he encountered in the valley, and when he touches the inscription on this one, all the words are automatically translated in his head. The inscription mentions the name of the land god that this gravestone belongs to, so Kai goes around to the other side to read more, but for some reason, he can't read this part of the text. He's able to recognize certain words like pact and temple, but they don't come together as a full sentence, so he can't figure out what it's supposed to mean. Jose sees Kai mumbling to himself and asks if something's wrong. Kai's just about to respond, but then he gets distracted by Jose's chest and quickly looks away, choosing to stay silent. Just then, soldiers burst in and alert everyone that a group of apes is approaching. Everyone hurries outside and starts concealing the grave. However, before they can escape, the apes arrive. The captain quickly commands Kai and Manso to take Jose safely to the village, while the others stay behind to hold them off. As Kai and the others attempt to escape, two apes block their path, prompting Manso to step forward to confront them. However, one ape stomps through the flower garden that Jose has tirelessly nurtured. Enraged, Jose charges out, vowing to slay the beast for its destruction. At first, the ape hesitates when it sees the marks, but since she has barely any actual fighting experience, her hands tremble in fear. The ape quickly figures out she's a rookie and goes in for the kill, only for Kai to leap in and slash a deep cut across its chest. Kai notices the second ape charging at Manso's group, so he picks up the axe lying on the ground and swings it, slicing the ape in the shoulder. He then leaps into the air and drives the blade straight into its head. Everyone is surprised that Kai managed to defeat the apes with such ease, but Jose is particularly shaken because she caught a glimpse of the guardian bearer marks on Kai's face. After making it back to the village of Lag, Jose gets scolded by Olha, who's furious after he heard about her nearly getting herself killed in battle. He shouts that this is precisely the reason he disapproves of her fighting alongside the soldiers. However, the village chief steps in to calm him down. What matters most is that Jose is unharmed, but for the time being, they should concentrate on boosting patrols around the area, especially especially with the inspector's arrival approaching soon. Olha agrees and goes off to notify the soldiers about the updated patrol schedule. Once he's gone, Jose turns to her father and apologizes for all the trouble he's caused. But Moloch isn't upset. He's already been filled in on everything that happened, including how Kai took down 2 monkeys all by himself. So now he's just eager to see what Kai will do next. Meanwhile, Kai is busy taking care of a few chores